Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about an interesting poem that I found about war and dead people. I am referring to Masses by Cesar Vallejo. For those who don't know, Cesar Vallejo was a Peruvian writer who lived between the late 1800s and the 1930s, died pretty young due to exhaustion and a variety of illnesses. He wrote a number of essays, plays, books, and collections of poetry, some of which were published after his death, and he garnered some pretty good acclaim for his work. A lot of people celebrating the fact that he was another proletarian type poet, specifically writing about Marxism and the revolution in Russia, among many other things. Writing about those things, which were pretty popular in Europe at the time and had made their way to South America, and unfortunately, the American government didn't take well to that and made sure to institute capitalist authoritarian leaders for a period, and then did it again, like 50 years later in many of those countries. But Cesar Vallejo managed to, probably instill that communist or socialist spirit in South America during that time. So without further ado, let's talk about Masses. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. Masses. When the battle was over and the fighter was dead, a man came toward him and said to him, "Do not die, I love you so." But the corpse said, "How sad," went on dying. And two came near and repeated it, "Do not leave us, courage, return to life." But the corpse, how sad, went on dying. 20 arrived, 100, 1,000, 500,000, shouting so much love, and it can do nothing against death. But the corpse, how sad, went on dying. Millions of persons stood around him, all with the same request, "Stay here, brother." But the corpse, how sad, went on dying. Then all the men on the earth stood around him. The corpse looked at them sadly, deeply moved. He sat up slowly, put his arms around the first man, started to walk. In terms of analysis, there's a fair bit to talk about here with Masses. In terms of narrative, I think it's pretty straightforward. After a battle, a fighter finds a dead man and is like, "Please come back." But the corpse, how sad, went on dying. That's a common refrain in this poem. More people come, and still more, but it seems like the corpse isn't moving. But the last verse is particularly interesting because they all want the corpse to move, and it says, "The corpse looked at them sadly, deeply moved. He sat up slowly, put his arms around the first man, started to walk." So it seems like the corpse moved if you take this literally, that this person came back to life. If you take it metaphorically, it's merely suggesting that the man maybe wasn't moved physically, but maybe metaphorically in the mind or figuratively or something like that. This could be an allegory, but for what? I'm not really sure. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts on that. But yeah, if you take it literally, like a corpse gets up and walks because the people will it. And if you take it metaphorically, well, they carry on the spirit of this person, and that person hasn't truly died, which is in line with what Vallejo has written about. This is communist spirit or something like that, where the will of the people, the strength of the people working together can bring back the dead, or they can at least turn them into symbols, or they can will something into existence. They have power over anything. They are not as helpless as the bourgeoisie would make them seem. So that's maybe one aspect of the poem. Another interesting aspect of the poem is the interpretation of whether the man is actually walking or not. Because these people want it to happen so badly. At the end of the poem, you have the question, is that delusion, or is this actually happening? Is this a supernatural element to the poem? So if you say it's a supernatural element, then the man actually gets up and walks. Something really strange and peculiar happens. Again, which might be due to the fact that the people are willing it to happen. That maybe if you want something to happen badly enough, you can bring back the dead. But another aspect of this is, of course, the delusion, where maybe it's not, they're not actually willing this person to existence. They just want it to happen so badly that they all begin to imagine the corpse looking at them sadly and knowing that that's what they wanted to do, sitting up slowly and then putting their arms around the first man and starting to walk. And it's like, wow, this person has come back to life. These people have gotten what they want, but have they really? I think it's easier to believe that the more realistic interpretation for me is that these people are living a delusion. That they wanted something to happen so badly that they're imagining something that's actually impossible. Rather than sort of accepting a death and moving on with their life, they've sort of willed this or imagined this into existence, and now they're all living under the delusion. But if everybody lives under the delusion, is it really a delusion anymore? Yes, probably. You can't believe a lie, because it's still a lie at the end of the day. And it's really sad for these people because, they're unable to properly mourn this person if they're still imagining that person walking around, denying reality and all of that. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Masses by Cesar Vallejo. Pretty interesting poem. Interesting how you can sort of interpret it those two ways, one of delusion or maybe another of sort of socialist spirit of people willing something into existence that maybe seemed impossible before. If you have any thoughts on this, or you just want to say something about my review here, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you and have a discussion about this. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poem, or Poetry Thursday if they want to contribute at all. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and resurrecting travels. Yet again, resurrection seems to be a big theme of what I'm talking about lately. Farewell.